Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Monday night. Hopefully your weekend was amazing, and hopefully your Monday has not been terrible. For those of us that are in the IDP world, tonight's a good night. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk rookies, but more specifically, rookie linebackers. We did just drop over the weekend our ADP. So if you're in your rookie drafts, and I'm sorry, not ADP. Man, I'm getting the show started off ridiculous. Rankings are live on the site. If you're in the middle of your rookie drafts and you want to know what Kraig and I think about the rookie class and where we rank them, rotoheat.com, click on rankings. We're right there. Or go to Twitter. We've been tweeting that business out all weekend. So that is what's going on in our world. Hopefully your world is treating you well. As always, I'm joined by my boy Kraig Reith. How are we tonight, sir?
Doing all right. I had Friday off last week, I think. Maybe Thursday, Friday. It all just melts together. But back in today, work wasn't too bad. Got people to bed without too much of an incident and ready to relax and talk some football. How are you doing?
I agree. My house went to bed early tonight. The wife came home early from work and was super tired, so she went to bed early, and the kids fell asleep together in their room quietly without too much trouble. It was amazing. It doesn't happen often, so I cherish those times where everybody goes to sleep. Everything's chill, no arguments, no nothing. We got showers out of the way. Everyone went to sleep, so I am very thankful for that as well. And Clove, you are absolutely right. Don't forget to smash that like button because YouTube does not care about anything except likes and comments. So keep commenting, keep liking, keep sharing us out to the world. We do appreciate it. It is very helpful for guys like us that enjoy doing this and enjoy giving you this content. So there isn't been a ton of news and notes, so we're not going to dive into it other than you poor Packers fans. Your whole team's going to be quitting before too long if you listen to the media. Aaron Rodgers is unhappy. Devontae Adams may leave. Who knows? Anything's possible. The NFL wants to keep you entertained in the boring times.
You're not going to get any sympathy from Brad or I, Packers fans. Brad has to deal with them in the NFC North and living in Wisconsin and not being a Packer fan. I've just gotten crap from him my whole life. So you get numb to some of it. And I wish Rodgers the best wherever he decides to go because I just don't think it's going to be Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm really. It's hard for me to imagine a team that's on the cusp of Super Bowl contention to not make it work. Like if really the only thing standing in the way is your GM, figure out what the problem is and fix it. Like pretty straightforward. I mean, it seems like an easy answer to me. Figure out what's wrong, fix it. And if the guy really is that steadfast in getting out, find a good trade partner that'll get you a quarterback that you can play that isn't named Jordan Love because I don't think he's going to be your answer this year. He still needs some time to develop. MathQuest, it's good to see you. Clove, it's good to see you guys. Other than that, the news and notes are sparse. I mean, teams are bringing guys in for looks. Bobby McCain got released from the Dolphins. He's been getting some looks, but that's not necessarily fantasy relevant. It's that time of year, though, folks. Rookie drafts are hot and heavy. Startup drafts have come and gone, but there will be some trickling in. And the NFL itself is getting quieter. I did see some footage of Zach Wilson. I guess they did some work in New York with him. Looking pretty nice, pretty crisp. Not IDP relevant, but it's nice to see some of the teams bringing in the rookies and getting some work going. And when you think about it, we're about 2 months away from training camp. So, June, July, end of July, we get training camp. It's a good time. So that's that. Tonight we're talking rookie linebackers. So if you go to rotoheat.com and smash that rankings page, you'll see who Kraig and I have ranked. You'll see, and you can sort them to see which ones we have different. You can sort them and see which ones we have, all over the place. Best, worst, all that jazz. We got a lot of ways for you to sort them. Kraig, let's talk about the top guy. He went to your Dallas Cowboys. What do you love about Micah Parsons? Like what do you think he's going to be for fantasy, and why do we both have him at number one?
Well, he was the most complete linebacker and arguably the most complete, and most people had him that way, rookie defensive player in this draft. He could have gone higher probably, if not for one, all the quarterbacks, the four that went before him. Um, no, it wasn't four. It was three before him, and then Fields and Jones fell, but it was right around there. Um, and then, there's concerns about his character, his maturity, things like that. And I really can't speak to that because I don't know him. I don't know any of the situations firsthand. There's some sort of on the field things that, to me, you get hotheads that sometimes do that in college sports. It's guys that are amped up, ready to go, going after each other. Sometimes people say things on social media that they probably wish they could take back. And with Twitter and things like that, it's a lot easier to say something dumb. He hasn't done anything to ruin his career, and quite frankly, Dallas has taken on people, whether through the draft or other routes, people that have had worse, quote unquote, baggage that they're bringing with them. And right or wrong, Jerry kind of knows at this point how to manage these guys, or build the infrastructure around them. Like sort of like when they brought Des Bryant in. They gave him everything that he could to have people around him so that he wouldn't get caught up in issues and he would succeed, and he did. It worked out great for him in Dallas. I don't know that it's exactly the same sort of thing, but I don't have an issue with him taking him there with the other guys were gone. I preferred Slater at that spot in time with those cornerbacks. With a pre-draft show, I wanted a cornerback. I wanted Horn. You thought Surtain. Both were gone. And with Leighton Vander Esch, not long for the team with the fifth-year option not being picked up, Sean Lee retiring, and then Smith just being really good fantasy-wise, but, on the field he has coverage issues and other concerns. I don't know if he's going to be along for the team either, with the money that he'll probably command on the open market. So he should see playing time this year, I think, certainly, but it'll probably be next year, barring some injury, which both Smith and LVE have had. Playing time this year. So fantasy-wise, I just love it long-term, and I do for the Cowboys too, because I think they'll be able to handle the off-field stuff. And I think he can do everything you want a linebacker in today's NFL to do. So
Yeah, and I like him so much that in a league where I had Jalen Smith as my kind of LB1, he's kind of the guy that I was rolling out each week. I traded him. I traded Jalen Smith because Micah Parsons landed in my lap, and I was willing to take the risk of whatever was going on after selling high on Jalen Smith. Right now I don't know that Jalen Smith's going to have any better value than he has right now. And I found a trade partner that was looking for linebacker help. Didn't want to take the leap and go after Parsons because he didn't want to trade up with me to get him, because he knew my asking price was going to be a little higher because I knew who I was going to take and I knew who I wanted there. And I was willing to sit on both of them. I was going to have two Dallas linebackers, and I would just trot them out each week. Although I think I'd have to verify. I know I've got Bradley Chubb in that league as well that I drafted, who hasn't really panned out yet. I think I have one other linebacker. I can't remember off the top of my head. So I traded Jalen Smith. That's how much I like Micah Parsons, that I was willing to move on even before Parsons has touched the field, because I know in this league specifically we have some owners that aren't as strong in IDP, so I know that I'd be able to either backfill, and as I got later in the draft, I actually wound up taking Javon Holland and Trevin Moehrig anyway. So if it does bomb on me and Parsons isn't really impactful immediately or in the first few games, I can always start an extra safety because I have depth at safety. I've got Budda Baker, and I've got one or two other guys that are startable on a weekly basis. I wouldn't want to do it long term, but that's how much I like Parsons, is I was willing to sell.
Yeah.
Parsons can do it all. I mean, the guy could be your middle linebacker if need be. He could be on the outside. I mean, he's got the speed and the range to do it all.
Yep.
Okay, so your next guy is
the same guy we both had next. I just had him a little bit higher than you did, Mr. Davis with Washington. I had him at 2. You had him at 4. I love this spot, and it was my favorite landing spot of anyone in terms of linebackers for this rookie class, just based on one, the lack of competition, what I would deem for sort of that lead linebacker there, and then also who he's playing behind, and in terms of physically on the field with that defensive line. I think Washington has, and I don't mind saying this as a Dallas fan, because for fantasy, I don't think you can argue it. They have the best defensive line in football in terms of what they have for starters and then depth as well.
Right.
And putting a guy that is that athletic And really, I mean, that's what they were buying in terms of Washington with Davis is just a guy that is raw in terms of he's going to have to refine his overall skill set, but athletically, he has everything that you want. You know, he can get to the quarterback, he can cover, he can go sideline to sideline, and being as clean as I think he's going to be on many plays, assuming that he starts, whether it's, you know, start of the year, towards the middle of the year, I don't think Bostic or Holcomb are really going to give him a whole lot of run for his money, but we'll see.
But again, OBS all of a sudden started screaming at me, so that could have very well been my fault. Sorry about that, everybody. If it was, my apologies. Whoops, technology. So always a guy I think is fun. I think he does a good job with his athletic ability, getting off the edge, getting around the corner. He's got really good bend. I like the way he uses his body to kind of attack. And I think in that Ravens defense, he should get lots of opportunities to go after the quarterback, just the way that they rush those linebackers. I know Owe is not at the top of your list. What is he like? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
He was 14.
Oh yeah, he's
eight.
he's number 8 for you, and number 14 overall. So what made you not like him so much?
So he's one of those guys that we've talked about a lot. That just the comp I was going to use just in this class doesn't even make sense. But he has all the talent physically and the skills that you would want, but he doesn't have the production that you want, you know, even at a college level. Now, I know that Penn State defense had concerns last year just across the board, which had something to do with it. But I'd like to see more production out of him at a college level. He's going to a great team with a lot of veteran leaders. And there, like you said, there is that opportunity. They have Tyus Bowser, Jalen Ferguson, Pernell McPhee. You know, they're sort of the guys on the outside, depending on what side they stick them on. So there isn't a whole lot there with them. But, you know, that can cut both ways where you could get an opportunity, but there isn't sort of that main guy like Chubb had with Von Miller, you know, when he came into league to draw attention away from you. You know, they don't have a sort of head pass rusher to focus on, which, given the lack of college production, you know, concerns me a little bit. So I really do like it between draft capital and, you know, just his physical skill set. I just would have liked to see more out of him to put him that high.
Sure. No, absolutely. MathQuest has a great question over on YouTube. I'm new to IDP. Do linebackers have a good chance of being fantasy productive their rookie year? And at what age do linebackers usually start to regress? So linebacker regression kind of varies. I mean, if you look at a guy like Bobby Wagner who's hitting 30, he's still plenty productive and still one of the top linebacker options probably for the next year or two. Regression, in my mind, is a little bit of how does he fit in the scheme. So if he's a linebacker being used as a guy who's sideline to sideline and he starts to lose a step or two and he doesn't know how to handle it and he stops being as productive, I mean, then you start to see that cliff fall off. Linebackers can play into their 30s and still be productive. 31, 32 is kind of the spot where I really start to get worried. When it comes to rookies, yeah, they can be productive in their rookie year. I would say it's kind of a 50-50 shot. But Kraig, how do you feel about those two questions?
So I'm going to start with one about the rookies first. You can certainly have that, and I think a lot of it is a combination of draft capital and then their landing spot. You know, you have a guy like, Devin Bush or Devin White, who were highly picked linebackers in their draft 2 years ago. They were drafted. They had very nice first seasons. The same thing with Patrick Queen last year. You know, another guy that was taken pretty high that went to a great spot and just produced right out the gate. Someone like Kenneth Murray last year, you didn't really see what you'd want to out of him, but you have to sort of look what's going on there. And the Chargers, they played linebacker roulette for most of the year for various reasons. So they certainly can have that ability, but the two things you really got to look at are, one, the landing spot. Is there going to be that opportunity? And then two, sort of that talent level. Like, do they have what it takes to be thrown in there immediately and be sort of that centerpiece of the defense in terms of just the linebackers? You can run into other situations where, you know, guys come along and get thrown into playing time. We're going to talk about one here maybe later. Yeah, He's on both of our list. Ernest Jones. He doesn't have as high of draft capital, but I think he's going to be in a position where he could earn that playing time really quickly, and we've seen that produce in that defense. So you certainly can see it. The other question that you had about the cliff, if you're an elite linebacker, you're probably right. 32, 33 is where you're just not going to have what you're hoping from them. But you still see guys, Bobby Wagner's one you mentioned, another one who I think is just criminally underrated and probably won't be because he'd probably be hitting that cliff in a year or so. Levante David has just been putting up numbers year in and year out, really under the radar. And I love him. I still like him as a great value because you have all these new guys, and Devin White, he's not even the flashiest, quote unquote, best linebacker on his own team, but you can get David probably pretty cheap in some leagues, and he has a great chance to help you win a title, I think, if you're looking at this year, next year. So you really got to look at the situation in the linebacker, but if it is somebody that's been producing at a high level and he's still in that situation with opportunity, they can still produce to their mid-30s.
And the great thing about IDP is it's not hard to shuffle guys in and out. IDPs almost always fall to the late second round in rookie drafts. You can get good value on your IDPs, like you mentioned with in the chat. Get Nick Bolton in the fourth round. I mean, there's plenty of ways to replenish your roster. So even if you are sitting on your linebacker maybe too long, that's okay because there's an easy way to fix it. Trades aren't as hard with IDPs because people tend to be more willing to make the move, at least from what I've experienced in the years that I've done IDP. So don't be afraid if you do sit on a guy too long and you wind up having to cut bait because he's washed up, that's okay. You can find a replacement. It won't be hard. And even if you have to spend half a year flipping guys in and out and hitting the waiver wire, you can do that as well. Okay, so Joshua's got a question. I made a questionable trade, and I'm wondering what y'all think. He traded Kyle Pitts and Javonte Williams for DK, a first-rounder, and Tyler Boyd in a two-quarterback superflex. I don't hate it. I mean, so you said 2QP superflex, so it's not tight end premium, I'm guessing, because you didn't mention tight end premium. If it's not tight end premium and you're okay at running back, like it looks like you had 2 first-round picks this year, so if you traded for those and you didn't earn those yourself because those are probably earlier picks, I don't hate it because DK is one of the top wide receivers in fantasy. Plus, you got a first next year and a wide receiver 2. I mean, or back end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3. So I don't think it's a terrible trade. I don't think it's bad for you at all if you needed the help.
Yeah, like I said, depends on what you need. I'd like to know what else you have at running back and tight end, but clearly you were comfortable enough with what you had there to make this trade. Value-wise, if you think about Pitts and Williams are both first-round picks, even in 2 QB leagues, at least as far as I've seen, you're not going to get DK for just 1 first-round pick that I've seen at all. So, I mean, if you're talking about pick value-wise, I think you certainly made out in the end. And if it fits your roster, I think it's a perfectly good trade for you.
So there you go, Joshua. You did fine. Hopefully you didn't, you didn't trade away starters in Kyle Pitts and Williams. Because if you did, then you're kind of hamstringing yourself a little bit. But DK, I mean, I always like to go for the unknown commodity that's elite. DK is elite. He's a known commodity. He's going to be a starter for many, many years to come for you. So I don't hate that even on its face, because if you don't already know about next year's class has some really quality. So if you're in a 2 QB situation, that first rounder next year should hold some solid value as you get closer to that draft, because it's a nice class next year. There's some pretty solid quarterbacks coming out potentially. Obviously, we haven't even got to college yet, but I've been digging in and put out Devy rankings. We both put out Devy rankings here. There's some really nice options next year coming out.
Well, and you never know where that pick's going to end up. I mean, you might be thinking, all right, it's a late first or something, but crazy stuff happens each year. You may end up, falling into a top 3 pick in a super flex or 2 QB, whichever one it is, league, and those end up being even more valuable for you. So,
because funny story, in the Discord. If you aren't in Discord, you should be because there's some great stuff on our Discord server. People are joking today because I went from in the championship the year before to the number 2 overall pick, which I had traded before the season, hoping to make another championship run, and it fell apart with injuries and just terrible decisions. So worst to first, first to worst, it's possible.
Yep.
Well, I needed a running back, and I have Gasecki at tight end, but my team isn't winning it this year, which is why I chose to make the trade. It's also not tight end premium. Gasecki at tight end should be fine this year, but he's going to be a free agent, and they drafted Hunter Long. Like, I have a sneaky suspicion that Gasecki might not be a Dolphin next year, or if he is, it's going to be tough because just the way that they did that makes me really surprised because Hunter Long was one of the better tight ends in this class. So I don't know. I mean, you may, and because you need a running back help, you still obviously need running back help. I mean, I don't. If you're not winning it this year, it's better to go for the guy who's going to have the better long-term value. DK is that. Pitts, is a nice piece, but not tight end premium. You can find other tight ends, like they're attainable. So yeah. So I don't hate the trade for you, even with you trading pieces that you needed. Still good for you. DK's still the best piece in that entire deal.
I agree.
Okay, so next up would have been, what is it, Nick Bolton? Yeah, it looks like.
Yep, we both
looks like
Bolton next.
Looks like Bolton next. All right, so talk to us about Nick Bolton.
I have him at 8 overall in my 5th, and you have him as your 6th at 11. We kind of talked about this last week, I think, in sort of our draft recap. But I really like him in regards to he brings something different to that linebacking core in youth, which they do have in Willie Gay, but he's also a very different stylistic linebacker compared to Willie Gay, and similar to what we talked about with Simmons and Collins. I think they could complement each other very well if they both end up panning out. Bolton is more refined and ready to play right now. We saw last year with Willie Gay, he didn't get on the field a whole lot. He's a sort of like we talked about with many of these guys already, but just a great athletic specimen that's able to fly around the field and get all over the place. But he might not be that, long-term middle linebacker that's calling the shots in the field from what we saw. Bolton has a chance to be that guy where he's more of an old school linebacker and that he's just great in run support and knows how to tackle and pack a punch. He knows how to get to the quarterback a little bit, and, he can handle himself in coverage. He's never going to be the best or anything amazing, but I think he has a very good chance of starting this year for them. Hitchens isn't long for that team, and he's clearly not the long-term answer and just doesn't do anything great overall. Then he's a more cerebral player that knows where to be and knows where to direct people. But I think Bolton could be that long-term guy in his place there. Again, somebody that I see having value this year and in just a great spot long-term, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Willie Gay is more of the athletic freak between the two middle linebackers, but Bolton is just a beast. I mean, he just slams people, and he's a hard hitter, but he's a smart tackler. You don't see him taking really, really bad angles where he's going to get himself hurt. I think he makes a lot of really intelligent decisions at the Mike position, so I think it's a great fit. I think he's easily going to be a fantasy relevant guy this year because of what they have there. And could be, kind of the sleeper linebacker of this class when it comes to guys that produce in year one. I think Parsons will, but I think Bolton could be that next man up. Jamin Davis doesn't have necessarily a specific starting role immediately because they have guys ahead of him. He should, but, I think Bolton could easily be penciled in as their starter now. So I like Bolton a lot. All right, so who do you got next? You've got Ernest Jones, right?
Yeah, so a guy we didn't talk about a whole lot, if at all, probably. Pre-draft here, this coach speak before the draft that we always sort of talk about. You run into the same thing post-draft, in terms of guys just talking up the people that they took, because Lord knows if your coaches on the team that you're looking at a guy are not talking him up and are sort of pessimistic about him, you probably don't want to hit your train to them because that's like one of the worst things you can see this time of year. But Ernest Jones, He is a really smart guy. He knows where to be. He's a great tackler. He's got good awareness and coverage. And I also just really love his situation. We've seen so many different guys with little to no draft capital just do great at that spot. He's the highest linebacker that they've taken since Alec Ogletree, several years ago. Ogletree was in the first round and, Jones wasn't that high. But he's clearly the guy that the coaches wanted. They got him. They felt that he's going to be able to have that awareness to seemingly start right away. They're going to give him that opportunity. And it's not to the same level, no. But anytime you're playing behind a defensive line that Aaron Donald is the focal piece of, you're going to have an opportunity to clean up behind that, like we've seen with a Micah Kaiser, Troy Reeder, Corey Littleton. I mean, these are all guys with, like I said, little to no draft capital that have just put up great numbers when they've been called upon to do that. And I think Jones coming out is probably a better linebacker, draft capital anyway he is, but also just what you see on tape in college for South Carolina. He knows how to go out there and play and where to be. So he might not be, the highest upside guy out there, but between what he'd shown on the field and then what you have with teams, sort of like we talked about with Davis, he's just in a great position to get you immediate production if he gets that starting spot.
Well, for sure. And when a guy named Leonard Floyd is probably their top linebacker, come on, really? Like,
And he's not out there getting you the tackles
no,
either. He's the guy that he's going after the
right.
quarterback.
So, I think Terrell Lewis and Ernest Jones are two guys that could become impactful pieces of this defense. Now, Lewis hasn't gotten the opportunity. I don't know if that's because he just is picking up the scheme slower, or not.
He had been coming back he had been hurt too, though.
Oh yeah, he was. You're right. Yep, yep, yep. It so in my mind, Ernest Jones is kind of the boomer bust of our top 10. He
Yeah.
when you watched him at South Carolina, I definitely think he's going to need some time to develop the reading and reacting on the defensive side of things. But I think he falls into a perfect position because they needed linebackers with his type of athletic ability, with his ability to tackle and wrap up guys and securely tackle. I mean, like, there's a lot to like about him. The mental side of the game is something that you can develop and can be trained. And I think that's the only area where I saw it when I was watching when I was watching his stuff at South Carolina. I was like, I don't know what to make of some of the decisions he made. Like, was that the way the scheme was based? Because we know South Carolina's defense isn't like insanely strong in any area.
Yeah.
So I'm cautiously optimistic, mostly because of the landing spot and the situation he's in. So he slid into the back end of my 10. I think he's number 10 overall for me. So, but I like him. I'm willing to take a chance on him because he could be one of those guys you see impacting this year and be fantasy relevant. All right. So next up, you've got Pete Werner, the Nolens Saints. So tell us about Pete Werner as your next linebacker up.
Yep. I have him at 7 linebacker, 13 overall. You got him just right in the same zone, really. 15th overall.
I got him at 9.
9th. He's another guy that I think is going into a really interesting situation. That linebacking core and just that team in general in New Orleans is going over a complete overhaul, not overalls, although maybe they're going to wear overalls too. It might be a little warm for that, but they warm in Florida in the water boy, so Louisiana is not that different temperature-wise. Yeah. But they took Werner pretty high. They took him in the second round, around pick 60. The year before, they took Zach Bond, who didn't play a lot, sort of like a couple of these guys that we talked about. So we're not really sure what you're going to get out of him. I think that's just by and large last draft class, not this most recent one, just with the offseason that they had, then all the weird COVID stuff being thrown into it for them. It's sort of like another rookie season, but I think they both have that potential to be starting linebackers. Werner probably more of a middle linebacker taking over for Demario Davis eventually, where Bond is probably more of that outside linebacker who's better at rushing the passer, like we saw at Wisconsin when he was there. But Werner's more of those, not completely old school, because I think he's better in coverage than some of the other people like Bolton that we talked about. where he can just go out there and, make the play for you. He's a really smart guy. He did well at Ohio State. Um, and I feel, again, sort of situationally, he's going into a great spot where he could start on the outside potentially because they don't really have anyone um, besides Davis and then Bond if he even starts. So the mix of opportunity, draft capital, and again, what we saw at Ohio State. Um, he definitely moved up. I didn't think he would get that sort of draft capital, so it was interesting to me to see him go that high. But he went to a great position. So
Yeah, he's an interesting linebacker, and shout out to Joshua in the chat, our New Orleans faithful showing up, uh, who says they're going to be great. I think they're in an interesting position because it's Tampa Bay, and then the other three teams are really trying to compete for that next spot up. So with this type of move, and they obviously re-signed Jameis, they re-signed Taysom. They have a couple of different guys. Then they took Ian Book in the fourth round. The pick of Warner in the second, I think, really tells you that they knew that linebacker was a big need, obviously because they invested high draft capital. But when you look at their roster, anybody could have told you that that was a big need because Demario Davis ain't getting any younger, and then it's Zach Bond, and that's it. Like you mentioned, uh, they're a team that I think Warner starts immediately, and I think he should be probably on the strong side. Would be my guess if I was a betting person. That would probably be where I put my money on his position. And I think he'll do well there. I think that defensive scheme with what they have, they've got Cam in front, they've got some decent linemen, they've got a nice secondary. There's enough around them that they can be very nice on defense and be very strong because they're going to have to be to help that offense out as it figures out how to be different because now Drew Brees is gone. So they're going to need a strong defense, and I think Warner really brings that strong tackling ability. I think he's got enough athleticism to be able to play perfectly fine in that defensive scheme. And he's pretty smart. I mean, from what I saw when I was watching Ohio State games, and I hate watching Ohio State games, uh, he was probably one of their smarter linebackers on the field. He didn't seem too out of place most of the time, so I think they got a good buy. I probably wouldn't have called him a second round linebacker, but the need was there, and it was a perfect fit for what they needed. So
yep.
he's fine for me. I think I have him at 9 in my rankings. All right, so
Yep.
next up for you would have been Jason Owe, which we've already talked about. So we'll go to your next guy, which is Chaz Surratt of the Minnesota Vikings. Tell us about Mr. Surratt and what you like about him or dislike. You can talk about what you don't like if you want.
I don't like that he's on the Vikings.
I don't like that his brother's in Detroit.
Well, they get to play in the same division, so that's nice for them. Get to play each other twice a year. Maybe he gets to tackle his brother. I had him at 16 overall, my number 9 linebacker. You had him as your number 8, 14. So again, kind of sort of swapped in the same area as Pete Werner. Surratt, whatever it is. My mind is getting to be mush here towards the end of the day. But literally, we've said this about so many of these guys, but we talked about this pre-draft. The NFL is completely moving towards, we talked about these smaller Kadarius Toney, Tyreek Hill, Reggie Bush. If you could put him in a time machine and bring him to today's NFL, he'd be exactly what these guys are looking for. Smaller, quicker guys on offense that can do a lot of different things. And you're seeing that in linebackers too. These guys that can just play all over the field. It's not your just traditional go tackle the running back, leave coverage to the guys in the secondary. Surratt has that skill set and knowledge base where he, being a former quarterback, he knows what's going on in the quarterback's mind more than a lot of these guys do, but he's still just putting the nuances of the position together. Thankfully, he gets to go and learn next to a guy that's just been great for a long time. Eric Hendricks, Anthony Barr has been there a long time. I think they're both hitting 30 this year. So like we said, they got a couple years left probably at most. Barr might even only have a year left on this contract. I don't have that one memorized. But they've been trying to, especially with the injuries last year, just throw all sorts of stuff together at that linebacking core. I mean, I think they had Nickerson started at one point. They had Dye, and then he got hurt. Wilson was playing great, but then he left. I think he's on the Eagles on a 1-year deal. So they needed to find someone for the future. I don't think Surratt's going to be a guy that you're going to get a lot out of this year. If he went to sort of a starting position where I thought it'd be more likely, like maybe the Browns, he'd probably be a little bit higher up here. But the Vikings don't need him to start right away. If he's able to, that's great, because I think they certainly could use that third linebacker that they can trust. But situation-wise, who he's learning from, and then just being able to sit and learn before he's thrown into the fire, has to be thrown into the fire, I think will do him a lot of good. But the sky's the limit with this guy. If you watch him on the field, he's just got to get control of making sure his body's catching up to his mind and where he wants to go and what he wants to do. But if he puts it all together, he could easily be a top 3 guy from this class.
Yeah, I think Minnesota is shaping up their future linebackers with Dye and Surratt, and I think the future is bright for these guys. I mean, Surratt brings the physicality, and I think they probably are going to put him as a Mike, which going into the league, I anticipate him kind of being an outside guy. So I think it's going to take him a little time to get up to speed, like you said. But I think their linebacking group is shaping up to be really special moving forward, but it's going to take some time. This is one of those, the ROI is going to be a little behind some of these other players. So don't go into it thinking you're drafting him to be your day one starter, because it's just not reasonable. He's going to need time to develop, but he is super athletic, super physical. I like everything about his game, and I like his landing spot. I don't know if Zimmer will be the coach much longer if he can't get this thing turned around, but I like the defense the way it's shaping up, and I think the linebackers are really nice.
And hopefully they have a defensive line figured out by the time that he needs to start, because it doesn't seem like it's clear what Hunter's going to do. Patrick Jones, didn't they take him? Was he the defensive end? I think that was a nice pick for them, because they just need defensive line help. And then was it Twyman too? They took a defensive
tackle.
Tackle. So they're trying to get pieces together to get younger on that defense, because they do have a really veteran defense at this point. But just with money and everything, they're going to have to figure something out. So good long-term spot.
Oh, for sure. And then rounding out your top 10 is Joe Trion, who went to Tampa.
He did. So we both have one guy left on our list. I have Trion at, I didn't even write down, but he's my number 10, somewhere after 16.
Yep.
Forgot to write it down. Where your number 7 guy, Aziz Ojalari, your number 13th overall. Right. I'm sorry, 7th linebacker. Both in interesting situations that they're both going to be edge, sort of outside linebacker guys. Trion taken a little bit higher than Aziz. Aziz fell due to injury, is mainly what's being reported, to the Giants, and he went in the 2nd, right?
Yes.
I don't have my full rankings up in front of me. I just wrote them down on paper, but I'm pretty sure I have Aziz right behind Trion here, and it's one of those things where you're going back and forth in your mind how you like them. I like Trion's spot better right now, and I think that's what does it for me when you're looking at dynasty rankings. Not that he's going to have more playing time this year, because I don't think in any universe, unless there's injuries, which we can't predict that'll happen, because Aziz should be a starter.
Yep.
I would think, or at least a situational pass rusher where he's going to have a chance to get you points. Where Trion I like because he's going to have an opportunity to learn from Shaq Barrett and JPP. JPP's probably only going to be there for another year, maybe another after that. If he signs another sort of 1-year deal to stay there. But he's able to learn from a veteran team. He isn't going to be asked to do too much. But I thought he had the complete package if he could go to a team and learn behind people long term. What he did at Washington, not last year, but the year before, was just amazing. The pass rush skills that he already had at the college level. And, he's going to have to refine some of his run defense skills to be a complete player. But just, he reminded me in college of what I saw from T.J. Watt. Now, people are going to say, oh, he's going to be T.J. Watt. No, I'm not saying that. But similar to what I saw out of those two, yeah. I liked it. And, again, that sort of – I wouldn't have – if you would have swapped the landing spots of Owe and Trion, I probably would have had him swapped in the rankings just because, I don't like a rookie edge like that going to be sort of the guy on a defense. Um, Certainly it can work out for them, but I think it leads them to the potential for more failure up front, which we know can ruin someone's career. And Aziz, I feel, is sort of in that position. The Giants are a team that I can say the team's on the hot seat, but they're on the hot seat in terms of what are they going to do with Daniel Jones? Is he going to take that step? They have a really nice, I think, defensive line, but that linebacking core, they have Martinez, now Aziz, and meh. I mean, maybe they found another outside linebacker in the draft, but if not, it's Ryan Anderson and Lorenzo Carter or something there on the outside opposite of him, and he's really going to be for those linebacking pass rushers the guy I think this year. And how is he gonna, you know, step up to the plate? Maybe he will, and I'll be proven wrong, and you'll see our rankings adjust on the site as the preseason and the season go along. But I had him, like I said, about equal. I just like this situation better, and I liked Trion a little bit more pre-draft from what I saw in college. But they're really neck and neck for me overall.
Yeah, Trion's college tape is definitely better all around. Ojalari, when you watched him, there was consistency issues. I mean, there was clearly times you could see where he was bringing his A game, and it was there, and he was explosive, and it looked great. And then there's other times I'm like, this kid taking plays off. Where Trion, you didn't see that. The reason that I have Trion just a little bit behind is mostly because I think Ojalari should get immediate year one production just because he's
Yeah.
the best linebacker now. Blake Martinez is consistent and solid and a leader, but he doesn't have the explosive ability that Ojalari has. Ojalari has that extra gear rushing off the edge where he could give you probably 5 to 10 sacks in year one would be a fair range for me to think about if they use them right because that defensive line, because of what the way they deploy those guys, their secondary is going to be able to hold the wide receivers for at least a few
Yeah.
seconds. The situation got me excited, so I was like, you know what, I'm willing to put them up a spot or two higher. But I think Tryon long term could be a really nice piece. So the thing for me with Tampa is I'm not sure long term what this team looks like because if they
Yeah.
run it back again, Bruce Arians could retire. And it could be the Byron Leftwich show, and what does that look like? So a guy like Tryon, I think if you leave him on the outside of a 3-4, I think that's a really great spot for him. I think you could put him hand in the dirt, and he'd be really nice as well. So I think he really could be a transcendent player. I just couldn't say that for certain right now. But I love both players.
Yeah.
I would go after both of them, and absolutely want to make sure they're both rostered in every situation. Uh, so that's it. That's our top 10. There are plenty of others on this list that I would love to talk about. There are lots of guys that you should consider rostering. But to find out what the rest of our rankings look like, I posted it here in the chat. I've already posted it. Go to rotoheat.com. There are plenty of IDP rankings. We've got rookies and we've got the full 150. We go deep on these rankings for you. We have Devi, we have Superflex, we've got just the regular old offensive. I mean, we got it all. So there you go. That's it. If you have questions,
Look it up.
find us. What are you saying, Kraig?
Yeah, just go look them up. Offense, defense, Devi, whatever you want. You can find us all over the place. If we're on social media, well, I mean, you're not going to find me on Instagram. I have an Instagram account, but I have no posts. So, I mean, you can find me there, but you probably won't reach me there.
He is not responding. At RotoHeat Kraig on Twitter, you can find him there, and he will respond. He may gif you, but
right.
he'll respond. And it's a cool time. Like, we've got a lot going on here in RotoHeat. We've got a Discord server that you guys can join if you go over to any of the communities that we're a part of. You can find our Discord server link. We have a lot of great conversations going over there. Everything from fantasy football to baseball, basketball, hockey. We talk NFTs. We talk movies. We talk Funko. I mean, everything. So the Discord server is the place you want to go. We've got a growing fantasy community on Facebook as well. We answer questions. We're here to help. If you ask anybody who's talked to us on Twitter, Kraig and I are very responsive. We will help you out as best we can. We are live every Monday night at 9:30. I'm lining up some guests from the Twitter community and afar, so we can talk IDP with others. So it isn't just the two of us. We have a Tuesday night show tomorrow night. We potentially have a very fishy guest joining us, if we can get him out of the bowl, but we'll see. It's going to be a great week. Mondays and Tuesdays we live stream at 9:30. I have a Devi show on Thursdays, but I've been using that time on Thursdays to do rankings as well because I have a lot of rankings and I got to do a lot of studying. So Thursday nights we do live streams as well. Make sure you smash that like button, the subscribe, and the notification icon. Thank you guys as always for hanging out with us. We love you all. Kraig, any last words before we let these fine people go for the evening?
Nope. Every day is a blessing. Make sure you make it a good day tonight, tomorrow, wherever you're at, whenever you're listening to this. Just take care of yourself and take care of each other.
With that, we bid you adieu. Love y'all.
See ya.